Hello, and welcome to this special observance of Independence Day 2020. This observance is sponsored by the Barry M. Goldwater Chapter, Arizona Sons of the American Revolution. This July 4th holiday, as we know, celebrates the birth of American independence from Great Britain. It has been celebrated every year continuously since 1776, 244 years. I'm Bob Denny, a compatriot of the Barry Goldwater Chapter. I hope you enjoy this brief look into the history and celebration of America's independence. Sit back, get comfortable, and be prepared for a special performance I hope you enjoy, along with a few very curious occurrences associated with the 4th of July. Before we get to the 4th of July celebration, let's go back several months earlier in the colonies. In April 1775, when the initial battles erupted, few colonists desired complete independence from Great Britain, and those who did were considered radical. This began to change thanks to a growing hostility against Britain. The spread of revolutionary sentiments grew rapidly, such as expressed in the best-selling pamphlet Common Sense, published by Thomas Paine in early 1776. The increasing taxation and oppressive rule upon the colonists, along with a number of atrocities with little representation or justice from the British, led to an ever-increasing call for freedom and independence from British rule. On June 7th, when the Continental Congress met at Pennsylvania State House, later known as Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee introduced a motion calling for the colony's independence. Amid heated debate, Congress postponed the vote on Lee's resolution, but appointed a five-man committee, including Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, and Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, and Robert Livingston of New York, to draft a formal statement justifying the break with Great Britain. On July 2nd, the Continental Congress voted in favor of Lee's resolution for independence in a near-unanimous vote. The New York delegation abstained, but later voted affirmatively. On the 4th of July, the Continental Congress formally adopted the Declaration of Independence, which had been written largely by Jefferson. Though the vote for actual independence took place on the 2nd of July, from then on the 4th became the day that was celebrated as the birth of American independence. Did you know John Adams believed that July 2nd was the correct date on which to celebrate the birth of American independence? And did you know two of the drafters of the Declaration of Independence, who both went on to become American presidents, died on the very same day, July 4th, 1826, on the 50th anniversary of the 4th of July, 1776, Independence Day? John Adams believed that July 2nd was the correct date on which to celebrate the birth of American independence, and would reportedly turn down invitations to appear at July 4th events in protest. On the 2nd of July, John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail that July 2nd will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival, and that celebration should include pomp and parade, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other. On July 4th, the Continental Congress formally adopted the Declaration of Independence, which had been written largely by Jefferson. Though the vote for actual independence took place on July 2nd, from then on, the 4th became the day that was celebrated as the birth of American independence. On July 4th, 1826, America celebrated 50 years of independence, as just a few hours apart, two of its presidents took their final breaths. At the time of his death, Thomas Jefferson was 83, while John Adams had turned 90 the year before. Though both were unwell, their deaths came as a surprise to many, particularly as they coincided one another on this very striking date. In the weeks that followed, Americans offered a variety of explanations for the sudden loss of these two presidents. Though some likely wrote it off as coincidence, many saw the evidence of divine design at work. In a eulogy delivered the following month, for instance, Daniel Webster wondered what this striking and extraordinary coincidence might suggest. The men's lives have been gifts from Providence to the United States, he said. So too were their length and happy termination, which he saw as proofs that our country and its benefactors are objects of his care. But if it wasn't a coincidence or divine intervention, what other explanations might there be? Modern scholars have sometimes attempted to pinpoint why such a statistically unlikely event might have taken place. After all, Jefferson and Adams didn't only die on the same day with an already low probability of 1 in 365, they died on the same significant date and historic anniversary. When appeals to coincidence are insufficient, writes Margaret P. Batten in a 2005 bulletin on the Historic Society, we must look for explanations in common circumstance or common cause, or for causation from one case to the other. One possible explanation proposes that Jefferson and Adams deliberately held on for the anniversary. The phenomenon of people keeping themselves alive until they've said goodbye to a loved one or experienced a significant anniversary is well documented. It's entirely possible that Adams and Jefferson's will to live kept them going through those final days ahead of July 4th, but wasn't enough to keep them alive after that. In fact, even contemporary observers thought this might have been a conscious decision. Jefferson is also said to have refused his usual laudanum on the night before he died, which might have affected his ability to cope with the pain. In a separate eulogy, in fact, John Tyler described Jefferson's often expressed desire to die on the 4th of July, adding even more credence to the theory that their deaths on that providential date may not have been entirely accidental. James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, to Spence Monroe and Elizabeth Jones Monroe. At age 16, Monroe entered the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He cut his college studies short in 1776 to join the Continental Army and fight for independence from Great Britain in the American Revolutionary War. During the war, Monroe saw action in battles in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. He was wounded at the Battle of Trenton, New Jersey in 1776, and was with General George Washington and his troops at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania during the difficult winter of 1777 to 1778. During his time with the Army, Monroe became acquainted with Thomas Jefferson, then the governor of Virginia. In 1780, Monroe began studying law under Jefferson, who would become his political mentor and friend. Over a decade later, in 1793, Monroe bought a farm named Highland, located next to Monticello, Jefferson's Charlottesville, Virginia estate. Following his military service, Monroe embarked on a career in politics. In 1782, he became a delegate in the Virginia Assembly, and the following year was chosen as a Virginia representative to the Congress of the Confederation, which was America's governing body from 1781 to 1789. Monroe went on to become the 5th U.S. President of the United States. He served 2 terms, from 1816 to 1824. In 1825, Monroe left office and retired to Virginia, where he helped preside over a new state constitution in 1829. After his wife died in 1830, Monroe moved in with his daughter in New York City, where he died on July 4th, 1831, at the age of 73. His passing came exactly 5 years to the day after the deaths of fellow presidents Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Coincidence? If it is, it's very amazing. On behalf of the Barry M. Goldwater chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, I wish to thank you for attending this special observance of the 4th of July. Happy birthday, America, and happy celebration to all of you who attended. Thank you very much.